why stand-up paddling? Contours gave us a little bit of a glimpse into your background and your interests, but can you elaborate more on what drew you to rivers and especially to stand-up paddling?
Yeah, so I've been drawn to the rivers and creeks my whole life. I can remember being a tiny little kid and my mom would take me to the creeks to kind of search for salamanders or, just look for waterfalls and things like that. And then I got into fly fishing when I was a little bit older. And then ultimately I was traveling to the coast for work outside of college. And I decided to take a surf lesson, and I fell in love with it and wanted to find a way to kind of recreate that feeling here in Pennsylvania. And it was just at the time when paddleboards were sort of slowly making their way across the country, but they hadn't really landed in Pennsylvania. So decided to buy one sight unseen from, I think, REI, and just fell in love with the sport. And that's how I got started.
That's great. So then you moved on and decided to combine paddleboarding with conservation with filmmaking. So how did that come about, and what were some of the challenges there?
Yeah. So I had always been really inspired by film festivals like the Banff Film Festival.
Sure.
So that was one thing that really drew me to sort of the filmmaking aspect. And then I was also working at the time with the state parks to bring stand-up paddleboarding classes to some different youth programs. And that was the first time I had worked with kids. And I was really nervous that it was going to be, they weren't going to enjoy it. But I realized that by giving kids this opportunity to get out in the water, it was really a freedom for them. This was kind of a pulpit to kind of get them inspired about going on the waterways and enjoying them. And they just enjoyed it so much. So I wanted to kind of find a way to draw those things together. And a friend of mine connected me with some people at the Sprout Fund, a guy named David English. And I basically told him the tools that we had and what inspired me. And I said, I want to start a program that can kind of bring all of these facets together. So we started kind of going to the drawing board and drew up the picture of what First Waves was ultimately going to be.
Yeah, it is so different than any other program I'm familiar with. So you've done a lot of work with filmmaking, obviously with movies. What do you think makes a really compelling story? So whether it's something on film or it's an article that's written or a blog, what makes for a really compelling story?
Yeah. So one of the things that's been great with First Waves is being able to work with so many true artists. So, in this era we have, short attention spans and people are throwing up, content just to put up content. And what First Waves and what I am inspired by is people really putting some truth and honesty and a lot of time into each of those arts. So whether it is a blog post like the great ones that you're writing, or some of the beautiful photography that we have from Renee Rosensteel or Jared Wickerham, it just is amazing to see them really put the time into those things. So I think, treating all of those different mediums as an art form is the key, and really just devoting some time and taking that extra step to make it not just sort of internet fodder, but really go into, why are you inspired by this and how can I inspire other people?
Well, that's really wonderful. And talk about inspiration. I was lucky enough to spend a day out with you and some of the kids from First Waves, and it really was remarkable. You mentioned this about the transformation on their faces from this, are you kidding me? I'm not doing that, to I want to do that again.
Yeah.
So, and I got a glimpse of that with some of the kids that I met. But is there one story that kind of really sticks out in your mind, a transformation that happened or something else? I mean, you have a lot of experiences, probably a lot of examples, but something that really stands out there?
Well, clearly it was your first wave that inspired us. You did amazing out there this year. It was really great to have you out.
Thanks.
There have been a lot, as you mentioned. I think this is going into our 9th season with First Waves. So seeing those transformations, and it's been sort of ubiquitous to see them go from these really nervous states to, and sort of trepidation around the water, and then seeing that evolve to, oh my gosh, I love this. I love the filmmaking aspect, or I love the surfing. We give something for everyone. One of the more inspiring moments, though, was maybe a more somber one. One of the First Waves Johnstown programs that we did a few years back, we had all the kids suited up, ready to go in the water. And suiting up the kids for First Waves is no simple feat. We have amazing volunteers that takes hours of preparation to go into that. And just as we were about to go in the water, the river actually turned black before our eyes. So we actually witnessed a coal spill in the water that we were about to go into. So we had to halt it, and it was just this amazing juxtaposition between seeing the youth, trying to get out but unable to go out. We have it all set up, and then them witnessing that, but then them also saying, okay, what can we do? They can document that event. So they were out there with their cameras, interviewing each other, collecting some of the coal and taking water samples, and that led to, some negotiations with the DEP and, environmental advocacy things that the kids were able to actually do. So we actually had the idea, the concept of First Waves is getting them involved as advocates, happen right before our eyes. So even though it was a tragic thing to witness, it was the more inspiring thing, and I think really sheds light on the importance of the program, was seeing that.
Right, wow. So an example like that aside, although that's a really great one,
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on sort of the connection between people who like recreating on the water and then conserving that resource? And is there a way to kind of build on that a little bit more without actually maybe having the experience of seeing a pollution event in progress?
Yeah, absolutely. That was sort of at the extreme end, and obviously
Yeah.
not the way we want to do it. We want to inspire people to have fun and to enjoy it and to, fall in love with the watersheds in that way. So I still remember the first time that I caught my first river wave. It was actually at Greenhouse Park where we teach the classes, and I have a video of it, and it's embarrassing. I was pretty excited, at the time. It was maybe a 5 or 10 second ride, but just that intimate connection with the river, of being able to actually harness the power of it to ride it just like you would an ocean wave. I find it to be one of the more powerful sort of relationships that you can have with the water, and it's a really specific way to do it, but I think it definitely has power beyond just your usual methods. So that was sort of the inspiration and kind of why that connection helps youth in particular, where they might be interested in sort of the more adventurous side, or kind of getting down and dirty, getting in the water, surfing the waves, falling in. That's kind of the beauty of it.
And you do a really great job in all of your programs of saying, like, this water needs to be stewarded, and you are the next generation of stewards. And showing that the river is not just a place to have fun, but it's home to the macroinvertebrates that are, the kind of base of the food chain that goes up from there.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have a lot of opportunities to teach youth something new.
Yeah.
Do you feel like in return you've learned something from the young people that you've worked with?
Definitely, yeah. It's a great question, and honestly, the answer to that changes year by year. So like in the beginning, I'm learning things about how the kids are going to interact in a different way than the volunteers. I think more recently what I learned from the kids and from even the volunteers that are doing this for the first time is just that beginner mind, how to stay excited, as the surfer term would be, stoked, how to stay engaged, and just, come with a different passion, and just seeing their first waves, I get to relive mine. So, even though I might have surfed that wave 1,000 times, seeing the expressions on their faces from them getting to have that, and going from, it just being sort of taking part in the surfing to bringing that experience to other people and teaching and kind of passing it on to the next generation is sort of where I'm at now.
Yeah, so, that's great. And I was going to ask about the name First Waves, but you kind of built it into that question. So their first wave, that's really great.
Yep.
And so what do you want people to think of when they think of Pennsylvania's rivers and streams?
Yeah, so I mean, even when I was a little kid, like I said, going out there with my mom for the first time, finding salamanders, experiencing it in unique ways like that, I want that to be an option for kids, for generations to come. They should be able to go out and find a diverse species in their local watershed, whether it's in the city of Pittsburgh, in the Laurel Highlands, where we're doing First Waves programs with Johnstown. So I really want them to have those experiences, and clean water is where it starts. So, things like what we're doing with First Waves and other programs that the PEC is involved in, that's sort of the next step. So
that's great. So that's all I have. Any kind of final thoughts, or?
I guess the one final thing would just be, a huge thanks to the power organizations for the mini grants that they've done. Not only their financial support, but the support that they've been able to provide in, kind of acknowledging what we're doing, shedding light on the watersheds, and just being a partner with them has been amazing. So just a big thanks to them.
Yeah, you're very welcome, and it's a pleasure to partner with you each year. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Keep, I don't know, what's the term? Like, keep flowing.
Yeah.
Stay up there on your wave.
Shred on, yeah.
Shred on. Thanks, Ian. It's a pleasure speaking with you.
Pleasure to speak with you. Thank you.